What would you do if a manager made it their personal mission to ruin your life? In today's story, the protagonist's choice is a masterclass in how to handle it. It all started around 2014. I was working for a large movie theater chain in a small Midwestern city. A job that was pretty awesome despite the terrible pay and lack of upward mobility. I've always been the type to give my all, no matter the job. And here it was no different. At that point, I was one of the most tenured employees there, besides two part-timers who had full-time careers elsewhere. To understand how things went so wrong, you need to know about Vanessa. She'd started just a couple of months before I did, working as a supervisor at another job and aiming to climb the ladder at the theater. Soon after I started, a manager left. A supervisor moved up to fill the spot. And the supervisor position, a sort of manager in training role, opened up. This is where the story really begins. An employee who had been there for nearly 8 years was essentially promised that position. It was his for the taking. Yet, somehow, Vanessa got the job. Rumors had already been swirling about her sleeping with the general manager, the highest authority in our theater. And this move just poured gasoline on the fire. I tried not to care. I was just a peon in the corporate machine. What did it matter to me? But the veteran crew member who got screwed over? He left the company. And I couldn't blame him. The theater held a big meeting to announce Vanessa's promotion, where they gave a whole speech about professionalism and avoiding favoritism. They specifically said that regular crew members shouldn't be fraternizing with management outside of work. Vanessa didn't really listen to that, though. She regularly hung out with crew members, most of whom were underage. She'd take them to bars and buy them drinks, or just buy alcohol for them to drink at her house. She'd also smoke weed with them and, incredibly, post pictures of it all on a secret Instagram account. She thought she was safe because her family and, most importantly, her long-term boyfriend didn't use the platform. Who would ever find out? Even more damning was her behavior at the theater itself. She was carrying on an affair with a 19-year-old coworker while her devoted boyfriend supported her. But that wasn't all. She was also messing around with a 17-year-old. I know because I walked in on them in the break room one day. The moment she saw me, her face went from passion to panic to pure venom. She threatened my job on the spot if I ever told a soul. Honestly, if she'd just asked me to keep it quiet, I would have, judging her silently from afar. But the threat changed things. Fast forward about a year. Another manager left. And just as predictably, Vanessa moved up again. When the supervisor position opened up, despite my tenure and performance, I was passed over. Instead, the job went to a newer employee who was one of Vanessa's close friends. The other manager later confirmed it for me. Vanessa was tight with the GM. Who made the final call? Vanessa, high on her newfound power, believed she was untouchable. She was completely unaware that every act of cruelty, every threat, was a nail she was hammering into her own coffin. My enthusiasm for the job, already strained by years of minimum wage and zero recognition, began to curdle into resentment. I started planning my exit. Now, it's important to understand that Vanessa had a problem with me. I never confronted her about her behavior or the way she treated me. I just kept my head down. But the fact that I didn't play along with her games or kiss her ring absolutely infuriated her. Once she became a full manager, she made my life a living hell. She gave me the worst shifts, convinced her clique that I was a weirdo to be avoided, and even threatened me physically. I have no concrete proof, but I'm almost certain her gang of misfit assholes was responsible for slashing my tires in the employee-only parking lot. The cruelty wasn't just directed at me. She would openly make fun of my girlfriend, who is now my wife, for her invisible illness, MS. She would torment her over the minor limitations her disability caused. It was a constant barrage of petty and malicious attacks. Between that, being passed over for the promotion, and my girlfriend leaving for college, I was done. I found a new job. The new job was a lifeline, paying me double what I made at the theater and setting me on a real career path. I was ecstatic. I told a few close friends at work, including my wife whom I'd met there, asking them to keep it quiet for a couple of weeks. I put in my 2 weeks' notice with the GM, telling him I wanted to break the news to the crew myself to keep him from telling Vanessa and her posse. But Vanessa had to get one last shot in. This reveals Vanessa's greatest fatal flaw, her blinding arrogance. She was so convinced of her power over everyone, and so consumed by her hatred for me, that she couldn't comprehend that pushing someone too far would have consequences. She started a rumor that I was planning to just call out and not show up for any of my shifts during my final 2 weeks. And with that, she set her final act of revenge in motion. The GM pulled me aside and told me he wouldn't be scheduling me for my last 2 weeks. I was stunned. I tried to explain that it was a baseless rumor started by Vanessa, that I needed the income. I started to tell him about everything else she had done, but he wouldn't hear it. He told me flat out that he didn't believe me, that Vanessa would never do those things. It was her word against mine. I called my new job, but they couldn't move up my start date. So, I was jobless for 2 weeks. Thankfully, I was still living with my family and didn't have to worry about rent. So I decided to treat it as a forced vacation. But Vanessa wasn't done. She escalated again, having one of her cronies call my new job and tell them I'd been fired from the theater. I was so lucky my new boss was a reasonable person. I managed to talk him down, explaining the situation. As one person later commented, I was fortunate. Some managers will go to incredible lengths to ruin a former employee's life, even getting them arrested on false charges based on things that were impossible. Thankfully, my new boss had a level head. But that was the last straw. Walking out of that theater on my last day, sad to be leaving a job I'd had for years but furious at how it ended, I was no longer just upset. I was focused. I was determined to get my revenge. As another commenter so perfectly put it, this was all because she couldn't stand seeing me happy. Rule number 1 of living a secret life on social media: don't add everybody and their mother to your secret account. I reached out to an old high school acquaintance. Let's call him Marco, who had briefly worked at the theater. He used to be part of Vanessa's circle until they had a minor falling out, so he wasn't exactly a fan of hers. I bought him lunch. Food is the key to all revenge plots, and laid out the entire saga of my problems with Vanessa. Then, I asked for his help. I needed access to her secret Instagram, the one showing her drinking and smoking with underage employees, the one with the gushing posts about her 19-year-old affair, the one with the racy photos of her and her 17-year-old fling. He didn't even hesitate. He gave me full access. The feeling was electric. I scrolled back through 2 to 3 years of posts, a digital diary of her illicit and moderately illegal activities. It was more than enough. I took screenshots of everything. I went to CVS and printed them on the highest quality photo paper they had. The crisp, glossy images felt heavy in my hands. A physical manifestation of her downfall. For good measure, I copied every file onto a few flash drives. I bought 2 yellow padded envelopes and carefully filled each one with a full set of the printed posts, a flash drive, and a carefully worded note. The first delivery was for the GM. I drove to the theater late at night, pulling into a blind spot in the rear parking lot. Heart pounding, I crept around the corner, Mission Impossible style, and taped the thick envelope to the back door where I knew he'd see it on his morning sweep. The note inside simply explained that one of his managers had a secret Instagram account filled with damning evidence of favoritism, fraternizing with minors, and other wrongdoings. I demanded her immediate termination, stating that if she wasn't fired, the information would go straight to the district manager and corporate. The second envelope was delivered by Marco. He knew where Vanessa lived from their old hangouts, and I knew her schedule. He dropped it off at her home, addressed to her long-term boyfriend, with both packages delivered. It was only a matter of time. Soon, my phone was blowing up with death threats from Vanessa's gang, all screaming that they knew it was me and that I would pay. I just ignored them. What could they do? I didn't work there anymore. From what I heard, the aftermath was swift and brutal. The GM called Vanessa into the main office. I can only imagine her face as he laid out the high-quality prints, one after another, across his desk. Her smug confidence melting into pure terror. He had no choice. The proof was undeniable. A clear violation of so many company policies and conditions of her employment. He fired her on the spot. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, with his own envelope of evidence in hand, kicked her out of the home they shared. Her family, learning of her cheating and the fact she was fooling around with a 17-year-old, wanted nothing to do with her. The last I heard, she moved further north and has been bouncing between dead-end jobs ever since. I started my new job without a hitch and never looked back. Her life was in ruins, and mine was just beginning. Ultimately, Vanessa learned the hard way that when you build your career on cruelty and secrets, it only takes one person you've wronged to bring the whole rotten structure crashing down. She dug her own grave, but I was the one who handed her the shovel. So what do you think? Was this revenge justified? Or did I go too far?